Distinguished representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Providing aid to others in their time of need is at the core of our shared humanity and at the center of the mission of this institution. As the world continues to get smaller and more interconnected, supplying relief and resources where it can offer the most benefit is increasingly also the best choice for the future of our common planet. Now, more than ever, it is vital that member states, NGOs, and the private sectors coordinate an effective humanitarian response. This May, world leaders will gather in Istanbul for the first ever World Humanitarian Summit. Israel welcomes this important opportunity to strengthen partnership and to improve collective humanitarian action to help those most desperately in need. Mr. President, tragically, 2015 has been a year of devastating humanitarian crisis, of earthquakes and epidemics, of sectarian fights and severe famines. Millions of people around the world live in dire condition, lacking even the most basic human needs. The UN is leading international efforts to eradicate hunger, combat poverty, and provide basic health care all over the world. However, the scale of the problem is staggering, and much more must be done. According to estimates published by the UN this week, as many as 87.6 million people in 37 different countries are in urgent need of humanitarian aid. All of us in the room know the disheartening facts on the ground. In Somalia, a devastating drought has left 1 million people at risk of starvation at the same time as the country is being terrorized by Al-Shabaab. In the Central African Republic, a conflict that has dragged on for 3 years has led to the displacement of 1 million people. Ongoing insecurity and logistical constraints impede humanitarian operations, especially in more remote areas. In the South Sudan, large segments of the population face acute food insecurity, and the country only recently recovered from a cholera outbreak which affected more than 1,800 people and led to at least 47 deaths. In the Middle East, the combustible combination of failing states, destabilizing terrorist groups, has led to the explosion of violence with millions of innocents caught in the inferno. In Yemen, a sectarian conflict has devolved into a civil war, resulting in one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world, with 4 out of 5 Yemenis in need of assistance. In Syria, the brutal violence rages on as ISIS and other groups continue their reign of terror, and the Assad regime continues to assault its own people, using conventional and unconventional weapons. The horrific conflict has left 250,000 dead, nearly 7 million internally displaced, and 4 million forced to flee their home country to seek safe refuge abroad. The lack of access to besieged areas and the deterioration of civilian infrastructure have led to a humanitarian catastrophe on a scale not seen since the Second World War. The availability of safe drinking water in Syria has declined by approximately 50% since 2011, and by as much as 80% in Aleppo and Hama. Over a quarter of all schools in Syria can no longer be used because they have been destroyed, damaged, or are sheltering displaced families. The impact on Syrian children is particularly devastating, as the lack of educational opportunity threatens the future of the next generation. Mr. President, I would like to stand here and thank personally the Syrian representative for finally clearing up to all of us what the real reason for Syrian suffering is. It is Israel, not the government he represents so eloquently, not the gassing of its own people by the government. Israel is the cause of all, based on this crooked conspiracy theory that we just heard a few minutes ago. Any reasonable, real representative of the Syrian people, not of the government, would have stood up in this hall to thank Israel for providing humanitarian assistance to his own people, saving the lives of his own people, in spite that most of them have ill intention toward Israel. Mr. President, the cost of taking actions are high, but the price for not taking action is even higher. We must not allow these challenges to dispute and disrupt the life-saving work of distributing vital humanitarian aid, food, water, shelter, health services, and medicine to those who need it most. Israel is committed to extend humanitarian aid whenever and wherever it is needed. Earlier this year, in the days immediately following the devastating earthquake that rocked Nepal, Israel deployed search and rescue teams and set up field hospital treating 1,600 patients, saving dozens of lives, and even delivering babies. Israel is a small country, but our delegation to Nepal was the second largest delegation on ground. When the Ebola outbreak struck West Africa, Israel joined in the international effort to contain the disease and mitigate its consequences. We sent basic medical equipment and drugs to Sierra Leone, protective gear to the African Union headquarters, and dispatched doctors to Cameroon and Côte d'Ivoire to help strengthen the local capacity for emergency preparedness. Israel was also the largest donor per capita to the UN Ebola Response Multi-Partner Trust Fund with a total donation of $8 million. Israel is engaged in humanitarian outreach in the aftermath of disasters all over the world. Israel was on the ground in Haiti after the earthquake, was one of the first teams to arrive in Japan following the tsunami, and established a field hospital in the Philippines in the wake of a typhoon. These efforts represent the spirit of our people and the character of our nation. As Prime Minister Netanyahu said, this is the true face of Israel, a country that offers aid over any distance at any moment that it is needed. Mr. President, Israel's humanitarian outreach efforts are not limited to endeavors overseas. Israel makes continuous efforts to improve the well-being of the Palestinian people, both in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. Despite the constant threat posed to our citizens by rocket attacks from Hamas-controlled Gaza, Israel has been doing its utmost to assist in the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. Israel has been working closely with the United Nations to facilitate the Gaza reconstruction mechanism. Thus far, construction is underway on 267 of the 471 approved projects, and 2,832 houses are being rebuilt. Israel has upgraded the Kerem Shalom and Erez crossing, resulting in an increased capacity of 800 trucks per day. 2.6 million tons of building material for the reconstruction mechanism, for the rebuilding of roads, and for the numerous projects funded by the international communities have been transferred into Gaza. Mr. President, despite all of these efforts, the full reconstruction of Gaza will only be achieved when the Palestinian Authority assumes a more substantive role in Gaza. This has been recognized in the Assistance to Palestinian People resolution that we are about to take action on today, which stresses, and I quote, the importance of the effective exercise by the Palestinian Authority of its full government responsibilities in the Gaza Strip in all fields, including through its presence at Gaza Crossing Point. Throughout the years, we have heard many in this chamber blame Israel for the situation in Gaza and questioned its action. We have even heard the Palestinian delegate, as usual today, refuse to take any responsibility for their situation, speaking about peace while defining the only democracy in the Middle East and a possible partner for peace as a regime. Such rhetoric is unhelpful, does not provide an answer as to why the Palestinian Authority continues to evade its responsibilities and to avoid resuming government in Gaza. Over the past 3 months, Israeli citizens have been stabbed in the street, shot on their way to work, and deliberately run over while waiting for the bus. Despite these daily acts of terror, despite the incitement by the Palestinian Authority, we will continue our humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people and to work to encourage strong Palestinian institutions and a vibrant economy. We will not allow this wave of terror to get in the way of our commitment to humanitarian aid. However, humanitarian support and efforts alone will not bring peace and prosperity to the Israeli and the Palestinian people. Once again, we call on the Palestinian Authority to resume direct negotiation, the only path to an enduring solution to the conflict. Mr. President, I would like to conclude by paying tribute to all of the humanitarian workers from the member states around the world, UN personnel, and countless other individuals who have dedicated their lives to the service of those in need. Their tireless efforts, which have had a life-changing impact on the lives of millions of people around the world, are all too often underappreciated. Let us always be inspired by their compassion, dedication, and kindness in even the most difficult circumstances. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel